Again today the Gemara on Daf Lamed, the second line down from the top of the Yomad. We were speaking before about the issur of drinking wine or even having hana from wine that comes from Avoda Zara. So the Gemara here now brings a price in connection to this, and it goes into other halachas relating to wine. Tana Rabbana, we learned in a price yayin mevushal, if it's cooked wine, or also va'aluntis, a drink that's called aluntis that has wine mixed into it. The Gemara is soon going to explain how this aluntis is made. Shalev dekachavim asurim, that comes from goyim, they're both asa. And the reason is this aluntis was originally wine that the guy owned. And the guy took that wine and mixed it and made the aluntis out of it. So since originally it was regular wine, and the same thing with the yayin mevushal, it was regular wine, and then it was cooked later, and then it was aluntis later, we made it into aluntis later, so it's going to be asa. Now aluntis kibriyasa, however, if this is aluntis, this is the way it was originally by the guy, then muteres. Then that's a kind of wine that the guy would not pour for his Avoda Zara, so there's no chashash of yayin nesach, so it's muter. Now ve'ezi aluntis, what is this aluntis that we're mentioning here? It says the Gemara kedetran or kedetran tanya gabi Shabbos. The halachas, it says on Shabbos whether you're allowed to make this beverage or not. So as mentioned, we learned before, on Shabbos you're not allowed to prepare any kind of drink that's not used for regular drinking, but it's used for healing purposes. It's part of the gzeira of Chachamim not to prepare medicine on Shabbos. So regarding this aluntis, it says oisin anumlin. On Shabbos you may prepare this drink called anumlin, which is also made with wine, but vein oisin aluntis. But the aluntis drink you're not allowed to make. Now, what's the difference? Ve'ezi anumlin, ve'ezi aluntis. Anumlin is the ingredients are yayin, wine, dvash, honey, opilpulin, and peppers, black pepper. Aluntis is yayin yoshan, old wine, umayim tzlulin, and clear waters. So Rashi says this is water that was drawn and was left to sit a day or two to allow it to become very clear waters, and va'farsimin, and balsam oil. And why is this wine not allowed to be made on Shabbos? Because the avdi lebe masusa. This is not made for drinking. It's made for when a person comes out of the bathhouse and he's very hot, and just to cool his body down, you drink this water or this drink, this aluntis drink. So it's not made for regular drinking, and therefore it's also to be made on Shabbos. Rabbi and Rav Yosef, the Amri Tarvayu. Now Rabbi and Rav Yosef both said yayin mazug, diluted wine. There's no issue of leaving this wine overnight exposed, where there's an issue that's brought up, and it's already brought in the Mishnah, and it's brought in the Gemara many times, that if you leave it exposed overnight, there's a gzeira of Chachamim that you may not drink from it because of the danger that a snake may have drinking from this wine or this beverage and put its venom inside, and it's a sakana to drink from it. And the sakana is it's a sakana, and a person may say, well, it's a sakana, I'm not concerned, I don't care about this. No, but it's a gzeira actually. It's a gzeira from the Chachamim, Chamiris Akantami Yisur, that you may not drink from this wine that's left exposed.
Is it all beverages or just one?
Well, it's not necessarily all beverages. It's wine, water, and milk, I believe. Not mitigated to all beverages, because a snake will not drink from all beverages, not from all juices, but wine is one of them. It's brought in the Mishnah. And actually, b'zman hazeh, it says in the Paiskim, it says right in the Rishonim, that b'zman hazeh, if you're living in a place where snakes are not around, and you leave something overnight, that api halacha, it's allowed to drink from it. Still, there are Paiskim that say that alpha pikain, you shouldn't drink from something that's left overnight exposed, but api halacha, this concern about the snakes in our places is not something which is relevant. Again, what?
Also, the reason of
Pogim is a halacha regarding Kiddush specifically, but here we're talking Bechlal about.
It says you shouldn't leave it open.
Right, correct, yeah. Kiddush. Right, for Kiddush. But that's a different halacha. Here we're talking Bechlal about drinking wine. Right, so Rabbi and Rav Yosef both said regarding this halacha of having wine exposed overnight, that if it's yayin mazug, if it's a diluted wine, so ein ba mishum gilu yayin. There's no issue that it was exposed. Mavoshel. Another halacha they said, if it's cooked wine, as mentioned before already, ein boi mishum nisuch. There's no concern that a guy would pour this for his Avoda Zara. Okay. Now, the question was asked, they didn't explain the halacha of both of these wines for both of these halachas, regarding exposed and regarding yayin nesach. So the first child here that the Gemara discusses is yayin mevushal, cooked wine. Yesh boi mishum gilui. Is there an issue if it's left exposed? Or there's no issue. Maybe the snake is able to see the difference in the quality of the wine, and when it's cooked, it won't drink from this wine, and therefore there's no issue if it's left exposed. Tashema, so the Gemara says, hey, the Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi al Yayim Mevushal. Yaakov bar Idi testified about cooked wine, she'en by Mishum Gili. There's no issue if it's left open. Then the snake won't drink from it. Rabbi Yanai bar Yishmael, the Gemara brings an incident that happened. Rabbi Yanai bar Yishmael Cholash, he was not well. All Gabei, Rabbi Yishmael bar Zirud, V'Rabbanan l'shiyuli bey. So Rabbi Yishmael bar Ben Zirud, that is, and the Rabbanan came to visit him. Now, Yasvi, they were sitting there, and they were discussing this shaila. Yayim mevushal, cooked wine, yesh by mishum gili, yayim by mishum gili. Is there an issue if it's left exposed or not? So Amalu Rabbi Shmuel ben Zirud. Rabbi Shmuel ben Zirud says, or other guest here says, Rabbi Shimon ben Zirud. Hachiyam Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, mishum gavre Rabbe. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said the name of a great person, Umanu, and who is this? Rabbi Chia or Rabbi Chanina. Yayim mevushal, cooked wine, ein boy mishum gili. There's no issue if it's left exposed, like it was said before. So Amrulei, so they said to Rab Shimon ben Lakish that said this in the name of Rab Chia, Nismaich, could we actually rely on this? In other words, they weren't doubting that he was quoting Rab Chia that actually said this. Sorry, what the shaila was, did Rab Chia say this lahalacha lamaisa, that you could actually rely on this? So Machvi lahu, Rabbi Yanai bar Yishmael showed them Olai val tzavari. It's on me and my responsibility, on me and my neck. He showed on his own body that I take responsibility that wine that's cooked, that's left exposed overnight, there's no issue of the snake putting his venom in it, you can drink from it. Now Shmuel, an incident happened where there was Shmuel va'avleit. Shmuel and this guy, Chacham, by the name of Avleit, they were sitting together, Havi Yosfi, they were sitting. Aisvel Kamayu, they brought in front of them Chamre Mevashla, cooked wine. So Mashchali Yadi, the guy did not want to touch the wine in order that Shmuel shouldn't be able to drink from it. Amalei Shmuel, so Shmuel says, but Harei Amru, it was said, Yain Mevushal, Ein B'Mishum Yain Nesach, that if it's cooked wine, there's no issue for Yain Nesach, so therefore you can share with me and drink the wine together with me. This is the sugi here. This is the source of the concept of Yain Mevushal. Actually, in Rashi, there's a mashmas here that by Yain Mevushal, it's mutter bahana, but not necessarily mutter to drink. There's a whole other sugya about wine that's going to come up. We'll see. Here, we're discussing the concept of yayin, and the issue that could be with the wine is that a guy could use it for yayin nesach, as yayin nesach to pour for Avoda Zara. But there's a whole other sugya that's coming up later here regarding the wine of a guy, that chacham will guys are not to drink from the wine of a guy because the isser of chasnos, in order not to join with parties together with guyim, so that you shouldn't come to intermarry. It's a whole other isser. Right, so in our sugi it's saying that the yayin of vushal, there's no isser of yayin nesach. Maybe there's still an issue of the fact that yachasnos, that you may come to join with them in parties and that. But most Rishonim say that even with sadat gzeira, there's no issue either, because chacham were not guys on this kind of wine, because yayin of vushal really, at least in the times of the Gemara, it wasn't a popular kind of wine at all. It wasn't a usual wine. Why would they cook the wine? Today the yain is mevushal only so that we should be able to use the wine. So therefore they didn't include that in the isser of the yain, of the isser of gzeir of chacham regarding wine.
Not all the wines in yain mevushal.
Yeah, correct. Even today, of course, yeah. There's,
they do it because in the restaurant industry, so the guy
correct.
The guy can pour
the wine or b'chlal, b'chlal something that's not shem Shabbos, Okay, the Gemara brings another incident regarding exposed wine. I'm saying that Rab Chia, the maidservant by Rab Chia, igluye la'ahu chamra mevashla. So there was wine that was left open, that was cooked wine. Asi l'kamei, she came to Rab Chia, she came in front of Rab Chia, Amar la, and he told her, as it was quoted before, in the name of Rab Chia, Harei Amru, it was said, yain mevushal eba mishum gilei. Cooked wine, there's no issue that it was exposed. Now, Shamed Avoda Zara, the servant of Avoda Zara, igli le chamra meziga. So he had diluted wine that was left exposed, and so Amalei, so Avoda Zara said to him, Harei Amru, it was said that yayin mazug ein by mishum gilui. That diluted wine, there's also no issue of it being exposed. A snake will not drink from diluted wine. We're talking here about these snakes that are they're feinschmeckers. Only good wine, not diluted, not cooked. No. Amar Rav Papa. So Rav Papa says, Layamad on this, that it says that if it's diluted wine, it's not a problem. Ela demazik tuva. If it's fully and properly diluted, then in those times of the Gemara, they would diluted a third wine and 2/3 water. Avamazik v'loy mazik, but if it's diluted as water, but less, not that ratio, then shasi, a snake will still drink from it. But the Gemara asks him this from an incident that happened. Mazik v'loy mazik mi shasi. If it's not fully diluted, will a snake drink from it. He was traveling on a boat. He had wine with him. And he saw a snake that was swimming in the water, coming up to get his wine. He said to his servant, Sami eine dedain, blind the eyes of this snake, which is an expression. It means that do something that will stop the snake of wanting to get this wine. Shako kali maya, so he took some water, and shadabe, and he threw it into the wine. And v'sar lachere, and the snake turned around and went away. So what do you see from here? That even if it's not fully and properly diluted, it's just a little bit of water that he threw into the wine, the snake is not interested in drinking from it anymore. So the Gemara says that achaye masa nafshe, when it comes to wine, which is pure wine, not diluted at all, the snake has such a interest in drinking from this wine, it's going to do whatever it is, even if there's people around, it's going to come and try to get from this wine, even to put its life in danger. Amazige, but if it's wine that has a little bit of water in it, like this story here, because there were people around, once you pour water into it, little water, it's going to turn back. But if it's not a case of people that are around, in a regular case, we could still say the point that we said before, that if it's properly diluted, the snake will drink from it, will not drink from it, but if it's not fully diluted, so then the snake will drink from it. But it's not going to be Ma'aser Nefesh anymore. It's not going to put its life in danger to try to get from this wine. Okay, but the Gemara asks on this as well from another incident. V'amezige loy masa nafshe. And if the wine is somewhat diluted, will the snake not still do whatever it can to come and get from this wine, even to put its life in danger? But Rab Yanai have be'achburi. Rab Yanai was in a place called Achburi, or others say V'amrila Bar Hedya have be'achburi. Bar Hedya was in this place called Achburi. Have Yosvi, have Kashasa Chamra Mezige, and they're sitting and they're drinking wine, diluted wine. Now Pashlu Chamra Bekuva, there was wine that was left over in the barrel. Now they wanted it to be covered, so v'tzarune b'ferunke, they covered it with they put a fabric over it and they covered it. And navachaz lahu chivye, so they saw the snake that came and wanted the wine in the barrel. So what did the snake do? The shakomaya, the snake took water in its mouth, v'rama b'kuva, and it poured it over this fabric into the barrel. Adamala b'kuva v'salik hamre elavei frunke v'shasi, until the water that he was pouring into this barrel of wine, so the wine came up and it poured out from the barrel, and then the snake had wine to drink from this barrel. So what do we see over here?
Was water.
Again, there was water, it was diluted, it was wine, and the snake was with its mouth, it was pouring water into this barrel, and it was drinking from this wine. So we see that even in a case where it's diluted wine, still the snake will be Ma'aser Nefesh. It'll go to such lengths to come and get some wine from this. There were people around, and still the snake was doing this in order to get some wine. So you see, even by Yayim Mazog, the snake has a very strong interest to drink from it, even to the point of Mesiras Nefesh. So Amri, they answered to this and they said, well, depends who diluted the wine. The mazik ihu shasi. If the snake itself, as it was in this incident, that it was pouring water into this wine and it diluted it, it will drink from it. The mizigi achreni loy shasi. But if it's already diluted from before, then the snake will not come and drink from it, as was explained before. The yai mazik, the snake won't drink. Okay, so now the Gemara says on this distinction, okay, maybe you can make this kind of chiluk, but Amar Ravashi says we can't accept this kind of difference. Or Vitemer of Mesharshi said, Pirukel isakanta. You're giving these kinds of answers and making these distinctions when we're dealing with the issue of a sakana, that a snake may drink from it and places venom into it. Regarding a case of a sakana, we can't rely on these kinds of distinctions, that you should be able to drink from the wine, the yain that's mazik from before, and if the snake himself is mazik the yain, we can't rely on these kind of distinctions. But Amar Rava, L'halacha Rava says, Hilchase yayin mazug yesh by mishum giloi. Wine that is diluted, there is an issue when it's exposed. The snake will drink from it. And the yesh by mishum yayin nesach. And there's also a problem of yayin nesach, the guy may pour Avoda Zara. But yayin muvushal, when it comes to cooked wine, ein by mishum giloi, here there's no issue of it being exposed, and also the ein by mishum yayin nesach. And there's no issue of it being yayin nesach. Another story the Gemara brings, Shamei de Rav Chilki bar Tuvi, the servant of Rav Chilki bar Tuvi, Igli, Hahu kissed the Damaya. So he had this certain measure of water that he left exposed. But he left it exposed when he was sleeping right near this water. So Asla Gebeder Chilki Batuvi, he asked Rav Chilki Batuvi about this. So Amalei, he told him, B'harei Omru, it was said, Emas Yoshon Alein, that if the person that leaves this water exposed is sleeping right near the water, so then the person that's there, the snake, is afraid of the person that he sees there and he doesn't touch the water. But the Gemara adds, V'hani Mili B'yamama, that's only in daytime. Ava Balelia, but if this is at night, a person is sleeping and he leaves water right near him, so loy, that doesn't apply. The snake will come and drink from the water. But the Gemara says about this distinction, V'lai, this distinction is not true. Leishna B'yamama, Leishna Balelia, it doesn't make a difference if it's day or night. Emas Yashan Aleim. If there's water exposed and it's right near the person sleeping, the snake will not come there and drink from it. Sorry. Yeah, that's how you read it. Emas Yashan Aleim loy amrinan. This svara, that there's a fear of the one that's sleeping there, we don't accept this, and the snake could sneak up and come and drink from the wine. So the Gemara, Rav leishasi mi be'ar ma. Rav did not drink from exposed wine that was from a guy, from an Armenian, because he didn't rely on them. Omar, he said, Lo zihiri begili. They're not careful with this when there's exposed wine. Mi be'ar malta, however, wine that came from a house of a widow, Shasi, he did drink from her home. He said, Omar, he said, even though that she herself would not know about to be careful about this, but sirche de gavre lekita, she still has her behavior that she follows and continues even after her husband passed away, and her husband taught her not to keep the wine outside and exposed. Shmuel's minig was the opposite. L'shasi mayim be'ar malta. He didn't drink any wine that was exposed from the house of a almana. Omar, he said, Las leim so the gavra. And she doesn't have, her husband's not alive, and she's not afraid of her husband commenting and saying, what are you leaving this outside here overnight for? And she won't cover the water. But from a guy, from an Armenian, Shasi, from the home of a guy, he did drink. And he said, they won't necessarily be concerned about leaving it exposed because a snake may drink from it, but but cleanliness they are careful with, so to leave it overnight, so the wine or the water will get dirty, that they are concerned about, so therefore you could expect that they probably cover the water or cover the wine. There's another version. Rav Rav did not drink from an Armenian, but from an Almani he did drink, the same as before. But now, according to this verse, Shmuel Shmuel did not drink wine or water left exposed, not from an Armenian and not from the house of an Almana. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, Sholish yenes hein. There are, I think, 3 kinds of wine. Ve'en ben mishum gili, that there's no issue of it being exposed. Ve'elu hein chad, a very sharp wine, mar, a bitter wine, and mosik, and a very sweet wine. The Gemara explains, chad is tilo charifa, wine that's very sharp, it has a strong sharpness, it's even vinegary. The matzri zika, it's so sharp that it causes the barrel that's containing it to burst. Mar is a wine that's yarnica, which some kind of wine, whatever it is, it's a very bitter wine that's difficult to drink. And masuk is chulya. Masuk is wine that's made from very, very sweet grapes. That's maybe it's called late harvest, or grapes that are in the sun for a long time, and it's very, very
sweet.
Again?
They become sweet.
Yeah, extremely sweet.
Yeah.
And therefore this is overly sweet wine. This is kind of wine that the snakes will not drink from it. Now, Rav Chame masni liluya. Rav Chame taught this same halacha, but he actually said that there are these 3 wines are actually especially good wines. Chad, what's this wine that's chad, very sharp wine, a very strong tasting wine? This is chamer or pilpulin. This is wine that's made together with peppers, that's seasoned to be very sharp and very good wine. Mar, the wine that we mentioned that's bitter, is called aspesintin. Also a kind of wine that, some kind of wine. What do they say there?
Bitter one.
Very bitter wine, but it's apparently has some kind of something to it that people drink it. Yeah, very.
Absinthe wine.
Okay.
Absinthe,
Yeah, absinthe wine. Okay, I'm not familiar. Masuk is mei barik. A very sweet wine is called mei barik. Rashi says the word barik means very meshubach, very good wine. It's a Persian word, barik. Amar Rav Shimon ben Lakish. Rav Shimon ben Lakish said, Karina ein bei mishum gili. Karina does not have any issue of it being exposed. My Karina, what is this Karina? Amar Abavo Chamra Chalya, very sweet wine, the Asi Ma'asya, that comes from Asya, or maybe Asia. Amarava, but Rava says, but they're in Asia, in that place where that wine is produced, and that's the common wine, there is an issue for the wine being exposed. My time chamar medino. This is the beverage of this place, of this country, and the snakes that drink wine, they're familiar with this wine and they're attracted to this wine. Amar Rava says, Hai chamre da akrim. Wine that begins to go bad. It's starting to foam and it's becoming vinegar. So for 3 days, yeshba mishum gili, there's still the issue of it being exposed because it's still wine and snakes will drink from it. And mishum yayin nesach, and it's also wine that will still be used for yayin to pour off Avoda Zara. So there's still the issue of yayin nesach. After 3 days, it becomes very sour. It's vinegar, and then ein mishum gili. There's no issue of it being exposed. Mishum yayin nesach. There's no issue of yayin nesach either. Nardai said, even after 3 days, for gilui, for the snake to drink from it, we are still concerned. My time is zimnim mikri vishasi. It is possible still sometimes that a snake will drink from it. Tanarabanan and Abraisa, we learned yayin taisis. Wine, this is freshly pressed wine that's still basically grape juice and it starts fermenting and it's bubbling. Ein boy mishom gilui. There's no issue of it being exposed. What is that time that we say that it's still bubbling and it's fermenting, that there's no issue of it being exposed? Gimel yomim, the first 3 days. Hashachalayim, cress that's crushed and made in water and it's made a drink out of it. Ein by mishum gilu, there's no issue of it being exposed. But b'nei gaila, the ones that are in exile, this refers, it says in other places, it refers to the Yidden that lived in Pompadisa and Bavel, Naga ben Isser. Their custom was that this is something which is Asr. That's only if there's no vinegar that's mixed into this. And if they mix vinegar into this beverage that's made with this cress, then migribuhu, this is something that fights against the snake, meaning the snake that doesn't drink from this. Kutach habavli. The kutach habavli, mentioned in the Gemara many times, this kutach is this sauce that was made from
sour milk.
Sour milk, and from bread that was moldy bread. And and from fish fats also. It was made for fish, right? So this is something which is very sharp. The snake doesn't drink from it, and there's no issue of it being exposed. No wine? No wine. No wine, but it's from milk in it though. Milk is one of those things that if it's exposed, it's usher. So even though it has from the milk, but it's mutter. But b'nei gaila in Bavel, in Pompadisa, their custom was that it was usher if it was left exposed. Rav Menashe said about what we said here, that if it's left exposed, it's mutter, but ispi nikuri chashinan. If you can clearly see the signs of a snake that pecked in it or something that would ate from it, then it'll be usher. Then we're concerned. Rav Chia Barashi Mashmuel, may tif ein by mishum kilui. If you have something that it's from let's say from a barrel of wine, it's dripping, and it's dripping constantly into a pail or into another vessel, and it's constantly dripping, then there's no issue of it being exposed. If it's constantly dripping, because then the snake hears the sound of it constantly dripping, then it's afraid to come and drink from it. When you have a fig, and there's the fig, when you break it off from the stem, so there's a little bit of an opening there inside the fruit, you don't have to be concerned that a snake ate from it and placed its venom inside. So you wash it out from the outside, and it's not a problem. Kaman, according to who does this halacha go like? The Tanya Rav Eliezer said, you can eat grapes, and figs, balayla at nighttime. You don't have to be concerned that maybe the snake put venom inside of it. The pasuk says, Shomer psayim Hashem. Hashem guards those that are simple and are even fools. The Eibishter guards them not to be harmed from this venom of the snake. Now, you may think that, now that we're bringing this pasuk of Shomer psayim Hashem, so apply it to everything that we spoke about before, and there should be no issue of leaving anything exposed. So the Mefarshim say that this pasuk of Shomer psayim Hashem is only regarding the figs and the grapes, where there's a very small chance that the snake got to it and put venom inside. Regarding this, we say Shomer psayim Hashem, but regarding the gili that was mentioned before, there's a more serious concern, and you can't apply this. Rav Safra said the name of Rav Yeshua that came from the south. Shloisha mine eresein. There are 3 kinds of venoms by a snake. Sholbacher, a young snake, shoikeya. When it places its venom in a barrel of water, it sinks to the bottom. Shalbeinini, a middle-aged snake, mefafeya, it bubbles and it sort of gets stuck somewhere in the middle. Shalzakin, an older snake, tzaf. The venom that he places in the water is not as strong and it remains floating on top of the water. So the Gemara asks about this distinction, the nature of the snake. Remember, shall we say, that a snake, the older it gets, so the power of the snake gets less, and therefore when it's old, the venom remains floating on top. But Vatanya and Abraisa, we learned, Shloisha, there are three, that Kozman Shemaskinim, Gvurim Mitoisefes Ben. The older they get, the stronger they get. Elohein, dog, a fish, Nachash, a snake, and a chazer, and the swine. So we see that it gets more power. So how we say that the venom by the older snake is less potent and it just remains floating on the top. And it says the Gemara, Koyach Esufiyu. Yeah, it gets stronger physically. The Kamaisif, it gets stronger. But Ziare Kolish. But its venom does lose its potency, and therefore by an older snake it remains floating on the top. Shalbacha Shekeya. Now the Gemara asks this, that we said that a younger snake, that it sinks to the bottom. Lamay Chesa. What's the relevance to know about the nature of this venom of the snake? So the Gemara de Tanya, the relevance is we learned in Abraisa Chavish and Gala, a barrel of wine that was left exposed. 9 people came and drank from it, and they didn't die. So you'll say, okay, there was exeter not to drink, but now that 9 people drank from it, I see that there's no problem. A 10th person should not drink from this. And there was a story that happened. 9 drank from this barrel that was left exposed. They didn't die. A 10th person came and drank from it, and he died. And why? Because the venom of the snake was all the way at the bottom. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Zeu Shekeya, and this is because this is the halacha of Shekeya, that it sank to the bottom, and it's so strong it's at the bottom, and that's the 10th person died. And the same halacha applies v'cheina v'tiach, same thing also by a melon or a watermelon. Shenis galsa, that was cut open and it was left overnight. Even if 9 people ate from this watermelon, they did not die. A 10th person shouldn't eat from it. And Omar Rav or Omar Rav Yirmiyah, like I said before, it's because the snake that was a young snake placed its venom inside of it and it went deep all the way inside, and therefore you have to still be careful with this. Right, so basically, that's when you get to Shekeh, but the same thing regarding the other points the Gemara says. When you have water, don't think that maybe I could take from the bottom. When there's a snake that may have put its venom inside, it could be in the top, it could be in the middle, it could be at the bottom, so there's no section of this barrel of wine that you can try to save when it's left exposed. Tanra Bara and Abraisa, we learned Mayim Shenis Galu, water that was exposed, and there could be this venom of a snake here. Don't take this and pour it out into the street, because that person walks in the street, and if he's walking barefoot and it gets into his feet, it can get inside and it can cause him harm. You shouldn't be marbis. This is in those times when when the floors were not finished, and you would want to settle the dust that would sprinkle water. Don't use this water to sprinkle over the floor. Don't use it to make cement out of it. It can get inside your fingers. Don't give it to drink. Not your animal. Not for your friend's animal. It's a danger. And also, if you shecht it and then you eat from it, it could be dangerous for you. And also, don't use it to wash your face, your hands, or your feet. Acherim say, if you're using it to wash in a place in your body where there's some crack, some opening in your body, then it's a problem. Ein sirte mutter. But if there's no crack, no opening in the body, in that area, you can bathe yourself with this water that was left exposed. So the Gemara now explains what's the difference between what the Tanakama said and what Acherim said. Acherim and Tanakama seems to be the same thing. All right, the Tanakama says don't wash your hands, your feet, your face, your hands, your feet. It's a place where it could be an exposure for this water. So it seems like the same thing that Acherim said. That in a place of your body where there's no exposure, there's no crack, it's not a problem. So the Gemara says no, there's a difference. Ikebenayu, the difference is Gava Yad v'Gava Regel. Could you wash the back of your hand or the back of your feet where there's no opening at all? So and that's so according to Tanakama, that is not allowed, and according to Acherim it is allowed. And another thing, Virumni Da'api, in a person's cheeks, where there's no crack in a person's cheeks, is it allowed or not? So according to Acherim, it's allowed, but according to the Tanakama, it's the face, and therefore it's not allowed. Amamar, the Tana said before, Lo yashkemen lo be'emtiv lo be'emes chaveira. This water that was exposed, don't give it to drink, not to your own animal and not to your friend's animal. In fact, the Gemara, but Vatanya, in another brayse, it says, Ava mashkeyo lo be'emes atzmai. You can give this water to drink to your own animal. Why should it be allowed? How do we answer this contradiction? And for the Gemara Kitanya, that brayse is speaking about leshundra, to give it to drink to a cat. A cat doesn't get affected by water that has the venom of a snake inside of it. In fact, the Gemara said that, and then why does this brayse only say your own animal? Nami should be allowed to give to your friend's cat as well. And says the Gemara, the chavre kochish. But if you give it to drink to your friend's cat, it won't die from it, but it will weaken. It will cause it a weakness. In fact, the Gemara, if so, nami kochish, don't give it to your own cat because it'll be weak. And says the Gemara, hod the body. But then it's gonna be strong again. It's only a temporary thing. In fact, the Gemara, the chavre nami hod the body. So if so, if you're giving it to your friend's cat, it'll also come back to its strength. But the Gemara says no, but by your friend's cat you can't do that. Because zimnin the boil is vune. What if your friend right now wants to sell this cat? Or mafsud lemine. And this will cause him a loss because temporarily it drank from this water and the cat becomes very weak and therefore won't be able to sell it for full price. So therefore don't give this water to drink to your friend's cat.